Hi, I'm Dave Gardy here at FedEdTV Studios near Washington, D.C. in preparation for the next pre-event FOSE-TV webcast. With me in the studios right now is Vice President of Sales, Mitch Farbstein. Thanks,
Hey, Dave.
Nice to see you back here in the studio again. Now, let's do a little, just an overview quickly. What is Feith Systems?
Okay, Feith Systems was started back in 1979 by a gentleman named Don Feith, and the focus at that time was to develop basically computer technologies, applications, particularly in the area of accounting and bill of materials. But in the early 80s, we got involved in electronic content management. And from that point on, we started developing imaging and document management, business process. And in the last, I would say, 12, 13 years, really started focusing also on records management. So we've been very successful in implementing solutions both in the commercial world as well as the government sector.
Now, there's a lot of headlines about the President's Records Memorandum, and
Sure.
How are the federal agencies actually progressing towards achieving the compliance with those records management goals?
I think now that goals and timeframes have been established through the memorandum, people are focused on it. Records management's always been there, okay, for a long time, even when it was just totally physically based. And now there's this focus that says you have to do this within a certain time frame, you have to get emails under control within a certain time frame. Now the real challenges are that the memorandum did not say where the money's coming from. And it didn't say we're going to give you more resources to do this. And what is happening now is the user community has to get more involved. In the past, it was just records managers that did what they wanted to do because nobody really paid much attention because it really didn't affect them. But now it does, and now the users have to participate in it. And now there's a big cultural change that's taking place, which will take place over a number of years. There's no, if you take a big agency, take the Air Force, take the Army, take Commerce, what ends up happening is this has to be transitioned over a period of time. And so the agencies had to come up with plans and provide them to NARA and provide them to the government to say this is our plan and this is how long we think we need to implement it. But they all also have constraints in terms of that time frame.
Can you tell me a little bit more about the compliance program?
Compliance program is there is no true compliance program, it's guidelines, okay? Each agency has its own policies. And based on those policies, you have to implement certain things that at least govern emails, govern policy, govern physical records, and so on. So the biggest challenge you have is defining what records management is for the organization. Is it being done for historical reasons? Is it being done for legal reasons, for transparency, et cetera, for FOIA, et cetera? So once that's defined, and in most cases, at least in the government, it's a combination of all of those. Once those are defined, then basically you can start looking at what is my inventory of objects or documents or emails that I have to manage. And so that's what a lot of agencies are going through right now. And based on commentaries that came back to NARA through this memorandum, a lot of people really started focusing on email, but the problem with most records management systems is that you have so many different categories that have been established that the user can't figure out what categories emails or any kind of objects belong in. So they came with this, NARA came with this whole thing about Capstone. Capstone, the idea is that you define a very narrow range of categories, and those ranges are kind of controlled by roles, who you are. So if you're an executive of the organization, all your emails, let's say, and Capstone really focuses on emails right now, all your emails need to be permanent, okay? But you still have a temporary period for those emails. So you're thinking this is temporary, this is permanent. If you get an email from your spouse or something like that. And then if you're not an executive, then everything is kind of temporary. But the age of the temporary emails could be 1 year, it could be 7 years. It's actually added some complexity to it. And the real approach to this capstone is you have to automate the categorization. You can't have the individuals making all these decisions and saying, okay, when I've had it for 6 months, now I'll get rid of it. Because if it's for litigation purposes, you don't know what role should be part of the litigation.
Why the focus on email in particular?
Email is great because everybody likes email, right? Everybody uses email. It's like social media. And it can be automated a lot more than what's in paper files or that's on shared drives or in something like SharePoint or in your legacy applications. So you can ingest emails from central servers, okay? Because every email is coming through some server within your organization or up in the cloud. So they're easy to grab, but you still have to categorize them. But it's just much easier to automate.
What about all the other items that make up the general RMA content of an organization?
That's where the real challenge is going to come, because you have documents, objects, and a lot of disparate systems. And it could be in anywhere. It could be any part of the organization. You know, in a large organization, say the Air Force, we have things all over the world. How do you manage that? And then you also have, you know, contractors that participate, and the contractors come and go. So there's a discipline that has to be put in place specifically for the different kinds of content you're trying to capture.
On a basic level, how can Feith actually work to support an agency's implementation of a practical solution?
Okay, one of the things that we sit down with the customer and figure out is, where is all your content, all right? Because the biggest challenge is capturing that content. Once you capture the content and you set the disposition and retention schedules, like typically you do in RMA, that's the easy part, okay? But it's getting that content and declaring it as a record. You know, there's when do you declare a record a record? Do you declare it at the draft stage? Do you declare it after everybody has rubber stamped it? That's a big challenge, and a lot of agencies are trying to figure that out. So we work with you there. We work with you within terms of the technology you have, the platforms that you have, because you have information in all these disparate systems. So you need ways of ingesting this content into the system to put it under true records management, whether it's in SharePoint, whether it might be in an Oracle system. It really doesn't matter. You need to be able to connect with them, and you need to trigger things from external sources, events, they call them, for the retention and disposition schedules.
Now, I know that Feith has been successful in implementing its RMA IQ solution built on its Bridge Logic platform.
Right.
Why do you think that is?
I think the reason is exactly what you're saying. It's a platform, okay? The platform has been developed over the last 25 years, started in 1986, and it integrated all the basic technologies we've developed in-house, okay? So there's a tight integration of those. And the biggest thing, if you think about records management, you think about any process in an organization, it's a business process. So all we're doing is taking those rules and capabilities of the platform and applying to them to this new application, if you want to call it new, called records management. But since we have all the other supporting technologies, we can ingest in different types of objects, whether email, Word documents, scanned images. It really didn't matter. And now we just apply the rules of records management, and in particular the DoD 5015.2 spec.
Now, are there specific technologies that Feith has developed to facilitate an agency's RMA efforts?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing that you want to do is make this so transparent to the user that they don't even know what's going on, okay? So if you're ingesting emails through, let's say, a journaling process or some other process, or if currently there's the technology of file sync and file share, okay? Things like Google Drive, Box.net, where people just put stuff out there, okay, without even putting it in emails now. And that information can be recordized if it's done properly. The biggest issue is, particularly with government agencies, is they don't even want their users to put this stuff out in the cloud in an uncontrolled way. So we have developed a technology for an internal operation for the same type of thing. So there is this sharing. I think what's going to happen also is that, you know, there's a big need to capture, you know, social media, because I think eventually, you know, with this kind of technology, with shared technology, file sync and share, and with social media, a lot of the emails are going to go away, because there's almost more instant gratification than even the emails are. So I think, you know, we have technologies that support that approach. And we have an auto-categorization capability that eliminates the user's need to actually identify and categorize each individual object. And that's really what you want to do. You want to put this so far behind the scenes that the user never even knows it's happening.
Now, is the commercial sector following in the footsteps of the government efforts?
They are. I think what's going to happen over time is that it's going to be pushed on them, because, you know, particularly from the litigation side, remember I mentioned historical litigation and so on, that's what really drives the commercial sector. And what will happen is, as the maturing happens in the government sector, and you have records managers now that are not just librarians, but have, you know, true computer technology experience and everything else, those people will move out of the public sector, go to the private sector, and be able to implement these systems in a faster way, in a more cost-effective way, where they couldn't do it before because nobody really knew exactly how to implement these solutions.
So what's on the horizon for Feith's RMA IQ solution?
Okay, good question. You know, we're kind of different than most of our competitors because, you know, part of it's longevity, you know, and sustainability, and we're not a bleeding edge company. Okay, so what we do is we look at the technologies that are you know, commercially available, or ideas that we come up with based on what our customers tell us, and we start developing that in-house. So we're going to add more capabilities like a more sophisticated federated search that goes beyond just Feith's silos of information, but goes out into other silos of information and doesn't have to move them into us. It just, we kind of manage that. We know it's out there. We do something called metadata tagging, where don't give me all your information. Maybe just give me some indexing values about something that you're storing in the other system, and we can take those indexing values and still do records management on there and notify you when things have to be done. So we want to try to keep stuff in place as best that we can, but there are things that, you know, just have to, you know, be stored in our system.
Excellent. Well, I appreciate, Mitch, the time you came here today to give us some perspective. We're talking to Mitch Farbstein, who is the Vice President of Sales for Feith Systems and Software. Mitch, thanks for joining us.
Thank you, Dave.
Dave Gardy here for FedEdTV and FOSE-TV at FedEdTV Studios near Washington, D.C. Thank you for joining us.